All right, Comics and Whiskey is back. So I took a little break and now I'm back because of all the political bullshit that's going on. I'm just tired of it. So I want to go to something that typically brings people joy, and that is comic books, even if they're politicized like the movie of this comic book was. Tonight's whiskey is going to be Powers mixed with a little Pepsi. Powers is an Irish whiskey, usually costs you about 30 something dollars. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's a nice little mixer if you're in the mood. So if you hear the fizz, that's the Diet Pepsi. Again, I don't like to mix my whiskeys with anything else, but sometimes it's nice for a little bit of a break. Tonight we're going to be reading Black Panther #1 from 2007. Now I'm actually about 4 deep in this series, and I got to say it's one of the better written series that I've read in a long time. I know that I started out doing this with Daredevil, and Daredevil, written by Kevin Smith, was just fantastic. And so far, this has also been fantastic. And I'm not really 100% familiar with the character or the writers or the people who did the art, but man, after reading this issue, I was pretty impressed. So let's get it going. First of all, as much as I like the inside art in the story, I'm not a super big fan of this cover. I just don't like the pose, and that's it. There's just, I don't know, there's something about it that kind of throws me off a little bit. I don't know. Let's get into it though. Black Panther #1 from 2007. This basically just breaks down a little bit of the history of Wakanda and T'Challa, the king, and Black Panther. So we're going to skip that. So here, basically what we have is Black Panther's here, and he's kind of thinking about kind of who he is, like an introduction. He says, I'm the orphan king. And then you have the guy who says, you're no longer my son. And then he says he defied his country. And then the guy is basically telling him, like, you spent your life building up your kingdom, and now you've been kicked out of it. And then, of course, on the side here is his sister basically saying that he's lost his way. So now he comes back, and I'm not entirely sure what he's coming back from, because like I said, I'm not super familiar. But he comes back, and he sees that there's just utter chaos. All these people who live in Wakanda, these miners, they're going nuts. There's like so much hate. And he says here, like, I came back, I wanted to praise these guys who are mining the vibranium, but all I can see is this green hate in their eye, and he can't really figure out what's going on. But he senses that it's spreading. So at the bottom here, which is really cool, I like how he kind of pins his ears back, and he's like, there's going to be a war. So he starts fighting his own countrymen, which he's not a big fan of. And they're just trying to kill him. Like, they're calling him a tyrant, and they're saying, this king is no good, and we're just going to kill him. So you see, some of the stuff here, and they got him in the chokehold here at the bottom. But then he's like, nope, time to put my whoop ass on. So he just starts throttling these guys. And you got to look at it. I mean, it's kind of it's so, I guess, well written. Like, the king comes back to praise these people who he obviously loves, and he ends up fighting them. Like, that's gotta suck, man. It's like fighting 150 of your own kids. But then right here you see this green, kind of like this air or whatever, and he senses that that's where the hate's coming from, so he tries to follow it. But unfortunately, the scent goes dry, and the people, once the scent goes dry, they stop hating, and they just kind of wander off. So now he knows, okay, well, there's some outside influence going on here in my country, and I'm not going to be having that shit. So then here we have like the A Nation Under Our Feet is the story. Now this is really cool. So you have the leader of the guard here, and she's basically telling a story about how this girl, and Aneka is her name, and she finds out that one of the chieftain has been doing some pretty horrific shit to some girls here. So Aneka basically does what she says the fathers and the brothers should have done, and she kills the dude. She chucks a spear and kills him, which is perfect. So then this girl here, and I forget her name, which is my fault, I should have known, but she's like, hey, look, what she did was essentially right. So why are we punishing her if what she did is what should have been done in the first place? And the queen, or not the queen, but the mom of Black Panther, she's basically like, look, you represent law and order. And so now you're coming to me saying, hey, even though I represent law and order, I want you to kind of break that to save this girl who is, essentially a villain per the law, but not per moral standards. And she says, no, I'm not going to do it. Like, I'm not happy about it, but I'm not going to do it. So then Aneka ends up going off to jail. And then the ship here comes back, and it's, a Black Panther. And Black Panther is basically talking to his mom saying, like, I don't know what's going on, but I want to talk to these people. and they weren't having it. They were just so full of hate. And he sees this picture here, this girl who he believes is the cause of that gas that he was following. And he basically says, like, I can't let my nation crumble like this, so I have to do something about it. So they talk about that a little more, and she's talking about how Wakanda, it's just all kinds of strife and trouble. And I like this line right here, which is probably my favorite in the entire thing. She says, "It is not enough for you to be the sword; you must also be the intelligence behind it." Because he's the king, it kind of reminds me of Star Trek back in the day, like Captain Kirk. He's the captain, but he's always running off doing these adventures. Well, she's basically saying, like, look. You can't just do that. You're the king. Like, you have to be smart about the things that you do. And it's a very, very good line. So now we go to the villainess here, and she's basically talking about how she saw the hate and agony in them. And basically all she did was exploit that. She encouraged it so that these people, rise up and start fighting. And she's not doing it because she hates them. She's doing it because she's trying to basically crumble the system. And that's the conversation that they have. And you see here, she's got quite a bit of followers. Now we go to the jail. And this girl's, this is the one who, threw the spear at the elder who was abusing the girl. And she hears some commotion. So she hops up and sees all these guys running. And then boom, her wall explodes. And here's Io, her lover, which you find out a little bit later. And this is actually so freaking cool. Like, I love this girl's costume. So she comes to save this girl to get her out of jail because she knows that her fate is basically sealed. And then, of course, she gets shot in the back. And then a little bit of a fight ensues. But she ends up rescuing her from the jail. And I really dig on their costumes. I think that they're so freaking great and original. So she takes them out of the city. And she's basically telling her, like, hey, you didn't have to do that. Now they're going to kill us both because they obviously know who you are and they know who I am. So that was kind of ballsy, I guess, more or less. And the girl says, if you're gone, then basically a part of me is already dead. So what does it matter? So then she kind of goes back over how Wakanda's falling. And, no one's really going to save them but themselves. So, what are they going to do? But this is also another good line here at the bottom, where she says, let us act like dead women should. And that's going to play out later in later issues that I've already seen. It's really good stuff. And this armor that they have is really cool. Now we're going back to Necropolis, the city of the dead. And basically, Black Panther is just kind of reflecting here and, thinking about his sister and his own people and how he's been divided from his family, and he doesn't like that. And then he basically says, how long do I have to be parted from you, meaning his sister? But I think it's also on a bigger picture, how long do I have to be parted from my people? Which is really great that, like, that's where the story kicks off. He comes back, everything's in divide, and he's, trying to figure out how do I unify all these things, because he's not fighting it just on a personal level with his sister, but he's also fighting it on a bigger level because he's a king and he wants his people to be unified, and there's something that's not letting that happen. So then here it says to be continued. Anyway, so that's it for that. This cover here is pretty cool too. I've already read this issue and we'll look at it next week. But the fall of the fall of Wakanda. Anyway, so as I said before, I'm super impressed with this series. I've never read Black Panther, and to be honest with you, I only even picked it up because of the movie that I haven't seen yet. And it's very well written. I really do dig on it. They did a great job with him in Civil War, and they're doing a great job in the comic strips. So, and of course, there's always political bullshit that surrounds this stuff, and we don't need to look at any of that. This is a comic strip, and that's what we're looking at it as. And as a comic strip, they did really, really well. Anyways, so taking a quick drink. Oh, man, that's tasty. We'll look at this again next week. We'll look at issue number 2 of Black Panther from 2007. You guys have a safe week, and don't let all the bullshit get you down. Take care. Comics and whiskey out.